So my name is Gabriel Vangelatos. I'm broadcasting from Clearwater, Florida.
Welcome to Building Dreams Together, a podcast about connection, courage, and the daily actions that turn dreams into reality. Whether you're building your dream, rebuilding after a storm, or just looking for inspiration to take the next step, you're in the right place. This is Building Dreams Together. And Gabriel, you wrote a book, Greatness Rises, right? From invisible to invincible. So my first question to you is, what does greatness mean? I guess, what does it mean to you?
So the concept of greatness is that you have average, you have mediocre, and you have like guess say like above average. Greatness is above that. I believe that greatness has to exist every single day, and you have to achieve it every single day. It's not something that you just wake up to and it's like you are. Every moment you go to sleep and every moment you wake up, you have to go and thrive and go and create greatness every single day. So that's why it's mostly you don't just want to wake up and just do the average thing that got you by yesterday. You want to wake up every day and achieve something great and do something great. And that's where you have to be great and you have to achieve greatness every single day. So that's where like the concept of greatness for me comes from.
I get it. I get it. It reminds me of inside of what I'm doing in the Believe Become Be You platform and teaching life mapping. I break things down into these four pillars of life, and we talk about hitting the four pillars in the morning before you start your day, focusing on taking care of your body with nutrition and exercise, taking care of your spirituality with some kind of meditation and journaling, taking care of your relationships by sending a note of love, honor, and appreciation to someone, taking care of the other pillar, business pillar, which is to learn something and share it. So it's in alignment, I think, with what you talk about. Greatness is going beyond, because most people don't think of that. Most people don't even pay attention to that.
No, like I would tell you most of the time, I guess through friends, through conversations, through everything like that, people are just trying to get by every single day. And to me, especially in today's world, in today's society, where it's like we're connecting every single day, regardless if like you want to connect or not, there's always a connection being made. You can't just live off of average. You can't just live off of doing the simple things in life that got you through the day. You want to go out there and create something great because that's exactly what the world thinks of you.
What do you say to the people that say, yeah, you know what, I'm good with average?
Well, I always ask them. It's like because I don't think most people understand that. I think in today's world, most of them just believe that average is what's a necessity. Average is just like. But what I tell them is, all right. So I always go into what I call like the future me dynamics, right? I go and I ask them, okay, so in 10 years from now, what would you like to be? Like I asked them simple questions like, what do you want the newspapers to say about you? Like if like let's say your funeral were to happen, who would you want there? And I always ask them that because it's like if you want some specific people, like your group of friends there, you can't just be average to your group of friends. You have to show them that you're greatness, right? They'll come to your funeral, but what would they say when they see you lying there? Like, when they're giving their eulogy, what do you want them to say about you? And I think it's most of the time it invokes a spark in some people, and they're like, you know what, you have a point. Like, I don't want to just live average. I want to be something. I want to do something. I want to create a legacy beyond what I'm doing every single day. And most of them do have that ambition, but I feel like this world that we live in today just like takes that away from them because they're looking towards the negative and not the positive of life. And I believe most of us in today's world just look at the news and watch everything that's going on. The news is not going to tell you anything that's happening that's positive. They're just going to tell you something will attract you to what they want. So that's why it's like forget all the noise, concentrate on what you want out of life and what impact you want to create.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. And I agree with you 100%. Inside the book, you talk about people feeling invisible. What's invisible? So when did you first experience that in your own life, being invisible?
I mean, I was experiencing that throughout my childhood, my adolescence, my teen years. up until my 20s, up until like I guess you could even say yesterday. But the feeling of invisibility isn't that you're actually invisible. Like people see you, you know, you're not John Cena, you can't see me. But the fact is that whatever you're saying or whatever, it's like you're in the right rooms, you're with the right people, but you're not saying much, and people aren't seeing that. People aren't seeing the value because you're not bringing them the value. So you do put yourself in the right positions. You're just not getting the attention you deserve. You're not getting the attention you seek. And that's where the invisibility complex comes from.
Yeah, I can relate so much to what it feels like to feel invisible, because most of my life I felt invisible. Most of my life I probably was hiding from something, or someone, or myself, holding back on myself. Who am I to express my thoughts like this? Or what is my opinion? Does it matter? And I've, over the last couple of years, obviously have emerged from that because I post just about every single day how I'm feeling, what's going on in my world, what's going on in my life, creating the programs that I did, trying to spread the word that we have. And so I do certainly know what it's like to go from invisible to wanting to be seen. So what was the turning point where you would stay, well, by staying invisible was more painful than stepping forward and coming out? What was the turning point?
And you're always going to feel that kind of pain, right? And that's what I thought. But the actual moment where I decided to make a change was the moment where I had to sell my restaurant down in Texas. And it wasn't that I had to sell my restaurant. It was just that I was doing whatever I could do. Like I was working crazy hours. I was working maybe 16 to 20 hours every single day. But what I was doing wasn't really productive. What I was really doing was, instead of paying the dishwasher, I was washing dishes. Instead of paying the chef, I was doing the chef. I was trying to do everything and be everything. I fell into that delegation trap where I felt like I had to do it all because, I'm the boss, I'm the owner. And I believed that my whole entire life that the hard work is what matters. But when I truly realized was I firmly believed I had the best cheesecake in the world. Like nobody can compare to my recipe. And that was my ego talking. I do have a great recipe. I do have you know, I have been told that my cheesecake is the best. But the fact of the matter is that whatever I was doing was keeping me away from actually going out there and putting my cheesecake in the world and saying that this is the best cheesecake. You guys need to have it. I wouldn't do that because I was deathly afraid of the feedback that I would get from it. Because 1,000 people can say they love my cheesecake, but that one person who would say your cheesecake sucks would totally like hurt me for the rest of my life. And that's what I was trying to avoid. And that's what put me into what I call attention purgatory is the fact that I want the attention, but I'm not going out there to get the attention I deserve. So I'm left with whatever attention I get around, which is, the attention I get from bullies, the attention I get from like trying to please people. And it wasn't the right attention. So at that point, it's like I decided once I sold the restaurant because I couldn't get my name out there because I was deathly afraid of the marketing that comes with it. I actually sat there and I decided it's time for self reflection. My wife gave me a book to read, and I started reading more. And they all mentioned self reflection. They all mentioned like your mindset and who you are really affects you. And it brought me to the point where it's like everything that's happening to me is happening because of me, not because the universe decided to like have some conspiracy against Gabriel Vangelatos. It was because Gabriel Vangelatos had a conspiracy against Gabriel Vangelatos. And as long as that was like my bottleneck, as long as I had that constraint on me, I was never going to get past the point where I could get the attention I deserved. So through it all, I had to like really like hustle and work on my mindset, work on my self reflection, work on self awareness to get myself out of that courage constraint.
Yeah, so from your experience, would you say that's the biggest block that keeps most people from owning who they are?
1,000%. It's not that people lack courage. I will tell you, everyone has courage. It's the fact that you're blocking it from actually like surfacing. You need more of it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Which is why I'm putting myself out there doing these things, taking a risk, creating something that and I don't have a huge following. I think, maybe 30, 60, 80 people, 100 people watch some of our videos. It's better than zero, and I've reached one or two people. It makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. I love when we create a short, like we'll create some shorts out of this, and then it'll get 1,800 views, and I'm saying, wow, 1,800 people saw that, and maybe one will get inspired by something we said, and so it's starting off small and just taking, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And plus, you get more comfortable with each episode, right? When I first started my podcast, the first episode I did was like, this is me. I was scared to death of doing it. By the 50th episode, I was like, so tell me a little bit more about yourself. I was more into my element because I was able to build that courage habit. I was able to flex those courage muscles at that point, and it's like it becomes quite a trip.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think there'll be a difference between some of the earlier podcasts that I've released or recorded that haven't even been released yet, and this one when it gets released, because there was some that were kind of a little. I look back at them and I go, I could have done a better job of being present with the person in the moment, talking about, whatever it was. Yeah, yeah.
I was focused on the time too, some many times because I was deathly afraid of that silence. Then you realize that silence does add an element to it. It does add more authority to it. So it's like silence ain't bad. But I was deathly afraid of silence in the beginning. So I would like, oh crap, what do I say?
Right. Yeah. Which is, why sometimes I didn't send you questions, but I prepared some in the background here for myself to understand, especially when it comes to invisibility. And I keep staying with it for a moment here because how much of it do you think is external circumstances? In other words, how our circumstances are in life versus how much is internal beliefs in us inside of our own head.
So I have a firm belief that there's echo chambers in life, right? How external voices become your internal constraints. So I would say about most of it comes from external sources, from your environment. But at the same time, if you're listening to those external voices, they become internal constraints. Meaning, like in the book in the beginning, I always talk about how my friend used to always say she's going to leave you, right? That was when I first, I wouldn't say first experience, but that's when I came up with the concept of attention purgatory. But he kept saying she's going to leave you. That was the external voice that kept like the internal constraint inside myself, like built that self fulfilling prophecy, which is like, oh my gosh, she's going to leave me. And it kept coming into my head that I kept like my whole mindset at that point was she's going to leave me. So I stopped caring about everything. I just like totally shut down and froze. And that's when like I became like someone in attention purgatory, someone who wasn't getting the attention because I was just in my own mind. She's going to leave me anyway. So that's exactly why I do firmly believe external voices, if you're going to listen to them, if they're going to
Well, they're
really
going to
push, yeah,
it's going to create your reality, right? You're having this
create
thought that
reality.
she's going to leave you. Guess what's going to happen?
She's going to leave me. Yeah?
She's going to leave
And lo and behold, she left me.
you, right? Well, it's what we feed ourselves. It's goes back to inside the program. One of the first things we teach inside of the I Believe in Me program for kids and young families is what we think about, we bring about. Your thoughts become things. Your thoughts become the things that you create in your life. The more you think them, the more you talk them, the more they're going to bring up certain feelings, which create our actions. We react to the feelings that we have. We do things, and we're going to get that result that happens. Yeah.
There's the saying I go by. It's what you think is what you say is what you do is what you're known for, and what you're known for becomes your legacy.
Yeah.
I would say it starts with what you're thinking, and other voices can determine what you're thinking too.
Yeah, but
So
then
that's
people say, well, how do I control what I'm thinking? Can I control what I'm thinking?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You just have to be mindful of it. Like a lot of people, like okay, it becomes subconsciously. Of course it does, but if like the hardest part of change is realizing you need change. And I firmly believe that too. Before I was like the most negative person in the planet. And I tell you, I was negative. People didn't want to be around me. And that's something that I knew, like, I kept blaming it on every other person. But when I realized that the constraint was me and I was the bottleneck, and how do I change that? Well, there's exercises that I started running too, like the no negativity diet. And it's like, let me see how far my mind could go without thinking negative thought. And in the beginning, when I first started doing that, it was like I couldn't even go 5 minutes without thinking something negative. And now it's like it's surfaced because now I know that I'm a negative person. So how do I change that? Well, I have to change the way I do. I think about things. Like instead of saying I can't do that, I could say, yeah, okay. What do I need to do to get to where I need to do? No, I wasn't thinking, oh, this person's an asshole. Excuse my language. I was thinking, oh, this person achieved what he did because of what he did. You know?
Yeah. But negative thought, I find today, because I try to be a very positive person, negative thoughts constantly do arise. They're always there. But it's recognizing that that's not serving me. So the thoughts, I talk about we have between, what is it, 40 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And we can't control those thoughts when they pop into our heads. We can control which ones we focus on. What do we do with those thoughts? How do we react to those thoughts? And, that's where we have choice. That's where we have power.
It's feeding the energy. You're feeding the right energy. You're not feeding negative thoughts the energy. You're feeding them to the positive side. But you're still having those negative thoughts.
Yeah. And where do they come from is something that I even wrote about just today in one of the posts that I wrote is because of all the disagreement and separation that's going on in our country today, the turmoil that we're experiencing in Minneapolis, and the way that people are behaving to prove a point or to and what I was talking about is I was trying to make people aware that our thoughts come from something that we believe. I believe the pattern is beliefs create the thoughts, create a feeling based on those thoughts, create us taking actions based on those feelings, and we get the results that we have in our life. And as long as if things are working and working for you, great, stay with it. But if it's not, needs to be a pattern disrupt inside of recognizing the thought. Where is it coming from? What's the belief that I'm holding that's creating that thought that makes me feel this way, that keeps creating the same action so that I get the same result? And all I was trying to do was offer an opportunity for people to experiment and stop. And you'd be amazed at how many people don't want to do that because they want to hold on to a truth that they believe is true, and they don't want to uncover anything different because they want to believe that this one particular thing is true.
Confirmation bias. Your confirmation bias is your comfort zone, and that's what everyone, I believe, most 90% of us, or who are into politics, do have that. Like they don't want to like agree on anything. And I will tell you, like right now, if you're looking at it, 5 years ago, the same thing was happening with the opposite side, except it was handled differently. That's exactly what it is every day. Everyone has that confirmation bias where if something were to come out to prove them wrong, or something were to come out that would like clarify something else, they would disregard it. And nowadays, it's either AI or that's fake news or there's got to be more to it. And regardless, that's exactly how it is. You can't get one side to agree on another, so you'd have to find that common ground, and no one's willing to do that.
Yeah, or a few of us, few people are. There are some, and honestly, I would imagine that I know I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I have that same or experience that same confirmation bias and automatic reactions that I have to things. But I truly pride myself on when I have those kinds of visceral reactions to stop
Yeah,
and to
I'm the
examine.
same way.
Where is it, where is it coming from? Why is it happening? And there are people in my life saying, why are you even bothering? Is it okay? Isn't it okay for you to have that kind of a reaction? Isn't it okay? Yeah, it is, if it's working. if it's advancing my life, if it's adding value to me. But if it's hurting me, and if it's
hurting someone else.
and then no, then it doesn't work for me. And I want to try to be that example of positivity, if you will, or adding value to a situation. Some situations are not positive. I mean, this guy Pretty getting shot, it's not a good thing. It's horrible, absolutely horrible
Of course it
what
is, yeah.
happened. And I yeah, but I want to examine all sides. I did an exercise this morning, putting myself in the in the spirit or in the person of both people.
Yeah.
Him as a protester, and the border patrol agent as the guy that was, in his mind he was doing the right thing, and in Pretty's mind he was doing the right thing, and there was a clash, an
That's what
explosion.
I believe too. I firmly believe that anything that's going on doesn't need to go on, and everyone that's actually involved in it is just adding fuel to the flame. The one thing that I learned from John Maxwell, and everyone talks about taking the high road, and I think we have differences of opinions when it comes to the high road. High road isn't walking away from someone because, like, they disagree with you. I believe the high road is you always see the value in someone despite your differences. Whether you're right or left, there's always value in each person. You just have to like really seek out that value and not dismiss it. And I think we're just more dismissive than we are of valuing others because their beliefs are different. To me, it's like, all right, I understand your beliefs are different. I understand, but I also understand that there's weaknesses and strengths in everyone's beliefs. And if we focus on the weakness and say, no, that's horrible, then you're not going to get anywhere. And that's where I think we all focus on.
Yeah, I see that. Have you experienced losing friends over your political beliefs, or this?
Yes, I have. And I'm open. I'm a Trump supporter. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens. I grew up with Donald Trump. I visited Mar-a-Lago plenty of times. My best friend is part of them. I do. But at the same time, I don't physically believe, or sorry, not physically, mentally believe that everything he does is right. I don't have to. Like, I have goals, and my goals is like, I care about the economy. I care about people. I care about immigrants. But now you're making it seem like I don't care about immigrants. And the only thing that I do like see in that is that this should not be happening. Minnesota should not be happening. Minneapolis should not be happening. But it's happening because these two sides cannot like let go of their power. I hate politicians. I hate politicians to begin with because I know the only reason the government is like its job is to protect the government. That's it. It's not to protect the citizens, it's to protect its own job. So every single politician is going to go in there and tell you what you want to hear. Like, I don't believe Ted Cruz is honest. I don't believe Nancy Pelosi is honest. I think Nancy Pelosi is evil because Nancy Pelosi makes so much money off of her stocks. Does that mean she's a bad person? No. I just don't believe what they're doing is for the best interest of the country. It's for the best interest of keeping them in their seat. So naturally, they're going to complain about the other side because, like, focus on what the other side's doing. I'm here to help you. And if your voice compares to mine, then yeah, that's where I want to get angry about. But I don't get angry at anybody. I don't believe in certain things, but at the same time, I do believe that both sides have a right to exist. Both sides have a right to their opinions. Both sides have a right to speak out about it. That's what made America so beautiful. So yeah, protesting is great. Protest about it. But the understanding is that that ICE agent probably is living in fear of like getting hit again, or probably living in fear. And he's trained to understand that that's just fear and he should stop. Did he? No. I don't know who, like, I don't know the whole story with Pretty, but I know the story with Good. And yeah, she like took off, but I don't think her intentions were bad. I think she wasn't thinking clearly at the time too, and she just took off. And I don't think he was thinking clearly because it happened to him before. And that was an unfortunate situation that should not have happened. Nobody deserves to die. I don't care what side you are, nobody deserves to die in that certain way. Unless God takes you. And that wasn't the voice of God, that was the voice of someone else taking your life. To me, that's just like, come on. Can't we take a step back and see that this is wrong? regardless of what side you're on, can't we take a step back and see that we're not doing anything that would make us better as a nation or better as people? We're not valuing each other. We're just there staying angry. And it's like, as long as I'm a Trump supporter, you're going to hate me. Why? Because I supported Trump, because I checked off on, like, yeah, I think he's a greater president. That's why you hate me? I'm sorry. I can't change that for you. But I'm still going to see the value in you. I still see the value that Biden did some good work. I voted for Obama. I voted for Clinton. Well, I was too young for Clinton, but as a kid, to me, it doesn't make a difference who you are. It makes a difference that you are a good person or you're thinking good. That's exactly how I see life.
Yeah, you and I are in alignment on a lot of things, and unfortunately, I've lost friends over it also. And it's not, and in my post and in I support a lot of what Trump has done, and I'm also angry at a lot of what he has done. And so I'm with you. So I think we both share that. It's unfortunate that several people that I know feel they can't have anything to do with me because of it.
Uh,
It's sad. It saddens me. It really does. You know?
like I said, it's just, I understand where you're coming from. And hopefully in 10 years, 15 years, when this whole like political divide is going to like end, because it will end. There's no way a divide like this could actually like hold up. It reminds me of back in the days with the hip hop divide. There's no way it's going to hold up. There's going to be someone out there that's going to be like, everyone's going to fall in love with because he speaks clearly, or she. I can't say he. They speak towards both sides and not just one, and it's going to like come together. But today, with all the media hype, with everyone like just focusing on your anger and not the value, it's not going to change because that's what they want us to focus on, and that's the side that's winning. It's not left or right. It's the side that's evil's on.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the glimmer of hope is what I heard this morning, that there has been some conversation.
With Tim Walz, yeah.
Yeah, with Tim Walz, President Trump, Frey.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some conversation that'll happen. The best thing that could happen for the country is all of them coming out and say, we've reached an agreement, people. We can move forward. Here's how we can move forward. And listening to each other and paying attention to what each of us has been said and not get caught up in this political.
It starts by valuing each other, I believe. And
Yeah.
when you're focused on the negative, you're not valuing a person. You're just focused on his beliefs, his or hers.
All right. Getting back to what I wanted to talk to you
Topic.
about, which
What
was
else?
your book, and I had a question that I wrote down here. What practical step someone can take today if they feel stuck or unseen or underestimated?
So I would tell you, first of all, read my book. But the number one thing that I would say is like flex that courage muscle. I always say if there's something, if you're like too nervous about going into meetings on Zoom, just show up on them and ask a question or say hi in the beginning. The first 5 minutes is what determines like how you feel about the rest of the entire meeting. And most of us just go on the meeting and just like, turn off our camera, turn off our mic, and just focus on something else because you're deathly afraid of being on there. Now, when I first started doing Zoom meetings, that was me. I would come up with any excuse in the book not to show up to a meeting or not to show up like to a mastermind because imposter syndrome, right? I felt like they're going to figure me out, so might as well hide. But I realized that if I spend time in the beginning just saying hi to everyone, just talking to everyone, or asking a simple question, or getting involved in some way where I use my voice and people see me, that means I already flex my muscle. And that means that people are like, I wouldn't be worried about noticing me, but that would mean that I'm there and I'm present and I feel visible now. And it's a start. So that's exactly what I would say is pick something like to get you out of that comfort zone. It's a small thing that you could do today to like start building that muscle.
So the people around community, um, how big a role does community and the people you surround yourself with play a role in you being able to rise, in a person being able to rise? That
Okay, so I believe that community is the future of everything. I believe with AI coming into technology growing, everyone like moving towards more tech, relying on technology than we ever did. I believe that humanity needs to connect with humanity, and that's involved inside community. So I believe whatever I did, whatever I've been holding on to, I believe that accountability comes from the communities that I was a part of. So community is, I believe, the biggest role that ever hit humanity. And without it, I believe that we're just gonna like sink into technology and like forget who we are, forget what we are, like what our purpose is. So community is the one that stitched me together and one that helped me grow as a person because I learned through community that I was suffering from invisibility, that I was suffering from like imposter syndrome, that my beliefs were limited. Technology is not going to teach me that.
So are you thinking that, in society, as we're growing as society and with all of the social media stuff that we have going on, that one of the problems that we have is people are more in isolation, not out in community. They're more,
Yeah, like I'll make an example. If we're just stuck on social media, all we know is what's on social media. And all we know on social media is what's happening on the news. Because people watch the news, then go on social media and complain about it. Like that's how we know what happened in Minneapolis. That's how we know what's happening all over the world. If we go outside, it's a completely different world. I'm not angry at anybody. I'm walking around saying hi to everyone. I'm talking to everyone. It's not as like, divided as the media makes us believe. So that's why this division, I believe, is happening because media is feeding into it. Regardless if it's news media feeding into social media or the opposite, it's feeding into itself. And we're just isolated in our own like little cubicles that we're only seeing what's in front of us. But once we step out into the world, there's a whole 360 degrees of like togetherness that we are like missing out on.
for me, it's all about people and connection. I talk about that a lot. It's, the people in our lives um, and one of the tools that I kind of talk about inside of how do you rise above that we can't do these kinds of things alone. Like, for instance, even what I'm doing with this podcast, or what I did with the programs, or what I did
Yeah.
to step outside of myself, to have the courage to learn to trust myself, was surrounding myself with the people in my life that had my back or that were encouraging. I read a book. I read a book about, and this was a book about growth and about how to achieve goals. It was Who Not How. I don't know if you've read that book or heard of it. Excellent, excellent book. But it's about the people that we surround ourselves with.
One of the pillars in my framework is audience connection. I believe that's a very important one too, because without audience connection, you're not connecting with any part of humanity at this point.
Yeah. Couple of questions that I have for you. First, what is the message you want to leave people with in terms of Greatness Rises?
So my whole thing is that yeah, when I wrote the book, it's all about like the courage constraint. It has its aspects to it, but it's all about the courage constraint. And the one true belief I believe that if like what I'm hoping for to get out of the book is the message that I'm leaving is I always say you are greatness. Don't fight it. So I'm hoping after this book, after they read the book or after like they come find me and we have a conversation about anything, that they realize that their greatness is inside of them and they kept fighting it throughout this whole time. So now it's time to let that out and stop fighting that.
Awesome. Okay. And last question. When you hear the phrase and when I talk about building dreams together, what does that mean to you personally?
So I love it. Building dreams together. So what I firmly believe is that nobody could do it on their own. Humanity is meant to be connected to humanity. And key is that everyone has a weakness and everyone has a strength, right? And if we rely on each other's strengths, then that dream will stay alive. We'll keep building that dream together. We keep building it together and together, and we create some kind of value that's just like one continuous stream of dreams. that just constantly create itself. I went off on a tangent there, but
That's
you
okay.
get the
No, you
gist
did
of
great.
it.
You did great. So I want to thank you. I hope that in the future, maybe we'll have some more conversations.
Of course.
But I appreciate you being here today. And thank
Same
you.
here, Jack. Thank you for having me.
If today's conversation inspires you, please like it, subscribe, and share it with someone you love. Now,